I'm doing like I feel like I need about 7 arms because I'm I'm doing about 3 things at once here, but it's interesting. We're very excited to be here. The inaugural, or I guess Genesis episode of the Blueprint. Just to give you a little bit of an insight as to what I'm doing here, I'm trying to stream video with this. So I just had Karma figuring out this streaming program with me behind the scenes. He's a legend. I'm also going to be pinning tweets, I assume, as we go, and also obviously holding my phone and speaking into my phone. So this is going to be very, very interesting. But yeah, just as we wait for some more people to come in, like I thought I'd just give a background because I realized in all these kind of spaces and talking about the Blueprint, I never really kind of went into my own story at all. So I'm just gonna have a little sip of my throat coat and get that out of the way. So I'm Rien. I've been a full-time touring musician since I was probably like 17. In a kind of a post-hardcore band called Storm the Sky back in Australia. So I had a pretty lucky start to my music career. I was kind of signed pretty young. We worked really hard, but I was super young, so everything seemed to happen really quickly. And I played to massive crowds and toured all over the country. The label thing started being an issue, and we were told that we shouldn't leave the country because we needed to work up to that. But really looking back, I think they just knew that they wouldn't get a cut of that tour. So we were getting played more on BBC Radio 1 than in Australia, and we had lots of offers, but we just never went. So that was a thing. And then also, playing to thousands of people and sleeping on couches and not getting anything out of it was really confusing. And I think that's like a really common issue in the music industry in general. But yeah, so skipping kind of 6 years, we ended up breaking up the band kind of amicably, all to do solo stuff. And I started the St. Rien project and spent 6 months or so sleeping on, I wouldn't even call it a couch. It was like just the pillows from the couch on a floor at my friend's studio, learning how to produce, because I just knew that I wouldn't be able to afford people to mix and master my shit or record with unless I had a good network in LA, which I was planning to move to. And I kind of spent all the money that I had on a visa and, threw it all in black, I guess. So I kind of flew over here. I met my wife 2 weeks before I flew over here, which is a whole nother story. But she ended up coming too, so that was awesome. And yeah, since starting my solo career, I had a lot of ups and downs too. Like we were pitching just before lockdown happened with COVID, like literally the day of. We were emailing labels and we were getting out of office replies, and we didn't know why. It's because everyone was going home. So that was weird. I decided to start releasing a song a month for a year, which was really cool, and got some great feedback, some great press out of that, but still just kind of was trying to find my place. And kind of October last year, I was doing a showcase, showing like one of my music videos, and the people running the event did like a POAP NFT ticket, and I had no idea what that was. So I got to speaking with them and kind of learned all about Web3 music, and knew instantly that was something that really, really resonated with me. And instantly, kind of did the typical thing of diving into thousands of mirror articles, probably not thousands, probably like 20, but it felt like thousands of mirror articles, Discords, which is still the ugliest interface I've ever seen of any app, but shouts out to Discord. And just, instantly felt like I was burning out. Probably after mirror article 5 or 6, I felt like I was burning out because I'm a kinesthetic learner and I have to be doing the thing or watching someone else doing the thing to learn it. So yeah, I was hearing stories, and you all hear stories about creators that have made waves in Web3 and got onboarded by this person or so-and-so, but you never actually get to hear that conversation, which is kind of what I was lacking in my kind of quest to understand how to use this space as best as possible. So I was kind of looking for what I hope this podcast can be. Hopefully a success story that you can follow along from scratch in real time. So I just kind of decided to make the show myself in order to kind of help my learning and then by proxy, hopefully help a lot of other people kind of skip mistakes and try to find effective ways to onboard themselves, for lack of a better word. So, oh, awesome. There's heaps of people here now. Hey, what's going on, everyone? So I've been working on a tagline. All my favorite podcasts kind of open with a cool tagline. So I'd love your feedback. So please give hearts if it's good and peace signs if it sucks or needs work. And please also like DM me any parts of it that you actually liked or could be taken out. So here goes. Welcome to the first episode of The Blueprint. This show is going to be a transparent and vulnerable account of exactly what it feels like to be an artist new to the Web3 space. It's the true story of me, an artist just like most of you who has the same fears, confusions, and desires. I'll be speaking to prominent figures and leaders in the space, asking the questions that everyone wants answers to. Then, most importantly, I'll be taking action very publicly based on those answers in order to achieve my version of success in the Web3 space. And as you follow along, I really hope that I can help you achieve your version of success here too. So that's the tagline. I hope it's got some legs on it, but all right. Appreciate the love. So this week's guest has become a bit of a buddy of mine. Thanks for the love. Thank you. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been chatting a lot and probably could have had 2 other podcasts if we recorded those chats, which I actually did. So we'll see how that goes. But his name's Karma, aka Karma.wav, Wave, aka Karma.love, Wavwrld. I've added that one. And the People's Mentor, I've also added that one. For those of you who don't know, Karma has single-handedly onboarded, mentored countless creatives into the Web3 space. His community, Wavwrld, is an incredible resource and safe space for anyone wanting to understand where to place their energy or find new friends in Web3. And the man's music is dope. His project with his partner Violetta is dope. He's a leader. He's a marketing whiz. He's a van lifer. And he's just a really, really, really nice person. So, Karma, how you doing?
I'm great. I love this podcast already.
I do my best. Man. Thank you.
I love the vibes. I know you're going to create the nice vibes over here. I get to see the video too, so hopefully Twitter Spaces soon is going to integrate some of that, but if not, Dio's going to hook us up.
Dio is the man. Hopefully that comes soon. So yeah, I just wanted to just actually quickly, before we get into the juicy part of the show, I do actually want to address the basics such as wallets and gas fees and stuff like that. I was kind of deliberating and I went into a few different communities and asked whether they thought I should kind of implement that into the show. And I kind of decided to focus more on how to onboard yourself to the right communities with the knowledge that most of these communities have great resources explaining the wallets and gas fees and the tech side of Web3. But I did also create a little document, which I'll pin right now to the space if I can. Just bear with me here. Doing 3 things at once again, as I said.
Do they still let you pin? Because I was looking the other day and I didn't see the pins.
Really?
But it could be like some, I don't know, it could be a pseudoscience. Can the people confirm? See, Henry's confirming. Henry, I don't know. I was really confused the other day.
Give us a clap if that's true, because I have to throw a spanner in the works. It's a low part? Okay, it's not a clap. A clap. So, okay, can't pin things to the space. Good start, people. All right, well, what I'm going to do, I am just going to tweet it from the Blueprint Twitter, and then that way it will hopefully be seen by anyone that needs to see it. Just bear with me there.
Yeah, it'll be perfect. Now you only need 2 hands. You only need 2 hands. Now you're gonna be good.
No, I'm only gonna need 2 hands.
They wanted to lower the multitasking.
I tweeted. I made a little mirror article and shout out to Jay, who actually really helped me with that. She sent me a lot of really helpful links. So yeah, if you're brand new to crypto and NFTs, head to that tweet that I just posted, and we got you right there. So yeah, so Karma, let's get back to it. Like, could you give a bit of kind of backstory on yourself and what led you to music and then eventually Web3?
Sure, yeah. Music was like one of the earliest memories. My actual name's Karma, so my parents were a bit of hippies, and they just took me to all the music concerts when I was young. Like, I think like Santana, I think I've seen Red Hot Chili Peppers, was born in Vancouver, so there was a lot of music there. And I remember distinctly, I asked for like a bass when I was young. They got me a guitar because a bass for a kid was like a big endeavor. Never forgot it. And then honestly, the first instrument that I really started picking up was drums. Um, and actually, you explaining your story, I felt a lot of similarities. I grew up playing in bands. I was a singer in my band, and we recorded an album around like high school, around Miami. Saw like what that side of was of the music industry, like as it was kind of moving more towards streaming. I remember I still had like a CD from it, and yeah, similar story where eventually like I got called towards learning how to just make everything myself because I wanted to create certain type of music that I wanted to exist, and just fell down the Ableton rabbit hole. And it was just a whole entire journey ever since then. But I think for me, what was really big is like that self-reliance that came from just being able to learn a piece of software and then like dive into all these rabbit holes allowed me to enjoy learning again. I feel like I stopped enjoying learning in school, and somehow like Ableton was the door that was like, oh, I actually like love following my curiosity. It got me into tech. It got me into crypto a bit earlier, and I worked at a company in 2016, 2017 actually, throughout the bull run, and really just saw what that was like in the crypto end of things. And as was mentioned, I went on a band trip like 2020, and was really then just looking into like how to turn all these creations into like what was called at the time like the creator economy. I remember reading like Lead Gen, following Jack Conti from Patreon, which I liked how he was a founder that was a creator first and then building for creators. So that like sparked something in my brain, but it wasn't even linked to crypto yet. And then the NFT wave kind of was just for me experimental. Like I was just like exploring NFTs. I didn't quite get it at first. I remember losing like ETH to ICOs, so being cautious. But once I understood that there were these property rights, they were fundamentally shifting the way we organize on the internet and the way we consume things and value things. That to me opened up the whole other side of the tech aspect of the creator economy that I was interested in. And yeah, just really music was always the closest thing to my heart. Like I create because I need to. Like I just have a practice of it. And as soon as I remember even as soon as I learned crypto, I thought of like, oh, what would scarcity look like introduced to music now that they like figured out the double spending problem and all these things that if you read the original crypto white paper and whatnot were getting explored. And for me, it was just, I remember seeing the Blau big sale, but there was nothing for independent musicians. And slowly but surely, this wave of just all these independent musicians kind of just emergent behavior, I call it, just self-organized. It really like was like Clubhouse was going on, and then like Twitter brought on the Twitter spaces. And I think the conversation aspect to me was really exciting. I always loved conversations. I liked this medium, and I just started following my curiosity. Um, yeah, I was really just following my curiosity that led me to the place I am right now. It wasn't a planned thing. Obviously, it's emergent behavior.
I love that, and I think that really kind of perfectly segues into what I'm going to say next. But I really just want to touch on, so like when you say creator economy, you actually posted a really cool article about that that I read recently. But I'd love for you to just kind of break that down a little bit for anyone that's kind of new to that aspect. I know there are definitely some people looking in that definitely know what that is, but just for anyone that doesn't, like if you could kind of maybe like align how that works directly with music and how that can be helped like in a kind of succinct way. I know it's hard to narrow it down, but that would be awesome.
No, I think it's a great question. I since also think people have pointed out like why there's inefficiencies in the mental model of a creator economy. But broadly speaking, I would say it's the economy around creation, right? Like even just think about it from fundamentals. Creators are creating all of these creations that then are put into different mediums, and then there's an economy around it. But for me, what really shifted was like going from that creator economy, which kind of turned into an investable asset class in Silicon Valley, like the way I was seeing it, right? You see valuations like Patreon and whatnot, and you see that now it's these tech companies that are just building for creators. To me, that's also like, if you get more nuanced, what I think of as the creator economy. to me, the like NFT side of things and property rights, it was like this ownership economy. It was a step above this creator economy. It was just a world where you own the property in the physical world and in the digital world. So to me, it's more about the ownership economy, right? So all of the content, or whatever you want to call it, I don't really like the word content, but all of the files you upload to Instagram or you upload to Facebook or Spotify, you go from a place of not having any ownership to having this digital ownership, this new experiment of digital ownership.
I don't think that anyone has ever said that in a more succinct way. So thank you, man. That was perfect. So yeah, I really appreciate you diving into that. So I think it's going to be so hard to keep this to an hour because you're just a wealth of knowledge, but we'll see what we can do. Each week on the Blueprint, I set myself a goal. So I'd like to just kind of announce that now. The goal for this week is to come up with the most effective way to understand and, most importantly, become a known member of the Web3 music community. So I set this goal for myself because I guess from my rookie view of the space, it seemed like it's a really important thing to be a face in the community that people know and like. You know, everyone doing well seems to be in some sort of a group or a community that they're known as at least a popular figure, if not a leader. So I wanted to kind of just dive into that with you if you thought that was kind of a good place to start, you know, the entire podcast on. But I think it seems to be like a really, really specific and important thing to have in your arsenal as you kind of build your name in the space.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. When you bring that up, I inherently just go back to like Dunbar's number. I go back to just thinking it's a social animal behavior. And that almost like this Web2 economy of scale didn't allow for the types of relationships our biology craved, which was these micro communities and having some type of hierarchy relationship within those micro communities. I do think on the flip side, there's like all of this really interesting aspects of interconnectivity that this technology is bringing, right? So I think there's also something to the relationships between the micro communities, but yeah, I think it's a human thing, and I do think people really, for me personally, like what you're doing with this podcast is the way of doing it. It's just, I love a book called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. He also wrote like Feel Like an Artist, and what you're doing with the Blueprint is essentially that. I feel like for me, it was the same thing. I was just exploring my curiosity and doing it in public. And I really felt that since micro communities allowed for it, especially in Web3 and the experimental nature of it, it really allowed for that to flourish. And organically, you find these communities that you align with. And I see you doing it as you're asking about it, right? So it's a very interesting happening live and in demand. So it's so human and I love it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I need you to write the value proposition for the entire podcast. So yeah, like I think that maybe the best thing to do would just kind of start diving into, you know, me as an artist, onboarding myself into the Web3 space. What community should I join firstly?
Yeah, and I think it's super personalized. For me, the first community that helped me find the signal in the noise was Songcamp. I remember seeing a tweet about Songcamp related to music DAOs, and yeah, I just hopped into the Discord, and then it was a lot smaller. I think they were just started Electra. Remember being super confused. Like I was also like figuring out still what this distributed economy and like this DAO world was, and I'm like, okay, music DAOs, let's see what's going on. And hopped into, must have been like a Monday call, which I think is a great first place. If I was going to go back and recommend people, I would say just 4 p.m. Easterns every Monday, Songcamp has their heartbeat calls. And the way they're structured now, because it's, as this podcast, an iterative process, is very welcoming to new people. And you've been there, and you really saw what it was firsthand. And in the beginning, it's just going over all of the updates that we've been doing internally as a community. And there's a moment where you can introduce yourself if you're a new person to the call. We also have this thing called present materials, where you get to share a piece of audio, a song that you worked on within the last 24 hours, which all of these things are recent additions. When I joined Songcamp, it was 9 people, 10 people on a call on a Monday, and just a slow progression of just exploring my curiosity. And I think with time, what the whole community has been doing is creating more opportunities for people to join, because I think in moments like that, I was used to exploring these types of like weird startup-y, like for me, like these discos were kind of like weird startup like projects that are just like doing good, their Google Doc and their Notion and like da-da-da. And for me, like that's actually where it was coming to me, like from a familiarity point. But I think that's what now is so much better about a lot of these communities. Good Karma Records is another amazing one. They do a great job. Wavwrld Music, I remember I really started like making sense of a lot more beyond just like Web3, but as it relates to the broader music world. And like the way you can contribute in there is amazing. It's really operating like a legit business because it comes from an existing operating business. I remember I hopped into a town hall, and I just like easy hack for people in these communities is just take notes on a town hall and just like give it to the people that are facilitating, and they'll usually appreciate it, or the other members would appreciate it. And don't do it from a place of, trying to meet anyone, but a lot of the time that's the best way of seeing who is the decision makers in this community and really just getting to know people better. I know Hi-Fi Labs also has amazing things. There's Colors, there's Dreams Never Die. There's just amazing ones. Wavwrld as well. Just you're always welcome to come in there, and we'll greet you and see your garden there whenever you're there.
That was awesome. I'm just tweeting these now so everyone can get the links. Can you just jump into specifically Wavwrld a little bit, because you've been chatting to me a bit about it, and it's super interesting, and I really like how you've kind of just let it grow its own legs, and you kind of stepped out of the way and you're letting people build from the ground up and coming up with events and different things on themselves. So like, how did that start?
For sure. And I think it started similar to this blueprint. You built it for yourself. I built it for myself. In this like season of my life, I really have been just not overthinking things. I love that Kenny Beats, like don't overthink shit. It's like one of my backgrounds on my computer. But I really just started it from a place of thinking Twitter was amazing, but it was losing a lot of the signal and the noise. And Discord also has that, because the way it's layered, your UI comment is so important, right? Just having all these servers next to each other, and it's a broader conversation around the way we're building just the modern knowledge economy. But for me, it was just a place to explore the social layer of music and the curation, the discovery. How do humans connect over music beyond just creating it, but really exploring like what other aspects can we build there? And yeah, it's just really turned into this bottom-up emergent behavior garden. I really love the idea of building technology like nature. I think with these distributed systems, that's the mental model to use. And for me, it's just when you're in the Web3 music space, it's a big echo chamber. And I think Wavwrld Music does a great job of this as well, but it's having those contrarian conversations and thinking about, okay, like we don't even know what the use case is. What can we explore beyond that? So that was really, it was an emergent, natural progression. I think my whole entire journey has been like that. It's never been planned. It's always just been an improvisation. That's the best way. I love improvisation. That's for me, like one of the core like values in my life.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so I've joined these communities. I'll put you in my shoes. I've joined these communities. I'm in the Discord. I've followed the Twitters. I'm in Wavwrld. I'm in all of them. Once I'm kind of in there, like, are there certain expectations or like ways that you're meant to handle yourself, or like are there things that you should, I guess, what are the don'ts and do's?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's anything super out of the normal human behavior of any community, right? Like I always like to bring things back down to like first principles, like what are humans interested in? And I'd say a great way is the weekly call. If there's a weekly call, a lot of these places have weekly calls. there's usually an introduction channel, which is a great way of just like sharing your story a little bit. And people are super friendly. Like I've met a lot of the people that have been in Wave halls either in person or connected with them besides just the Wave hall. And it's a great way of building rapport with people who are exploring the same journey you're exploring. Really, I think if you think about all of this as just human and human nature and just how can I connect with other humans, and I know it's hard, right? So I think it's also really defining what is your why. I think that's so important because it's a personalized journey. Simon Sinek has a great book about this, like Find Your Why. And I think if you have a why of what you're like looking to get in Web3, and it's different for everyone, and it's nuanced, and it's an ever evolving conversation, of course. But I think that really is important, right? Because if you really just want to like sell all these NFTs because maybe you have bills to pay or whatever it is, and that might be you might maneuver yourself differently than if you're just like looking to collect music NFTs. Like it really depends. And if you're an artist, I think it's about really being true to yourself and realizing it's going to take time if you're in here for the finance, because I think a lot of like, let's like be honest, a lot of people do see like the money, and that's like what piques the curiosity, which there is people who are making life-changing money, but I think it does take time. And I do see a lot of people who are joining every community and kind of doing the rounds, and from like a vibe, because a lot of this stuff is like a vibe check, you kind of sometimes get a vibe check of like, oh, they're trying to sell their NFTs, which to me, if you want to say like what's a do and don't, like try not to give off that vibe too much, or be like super honest about it, right? Like if you're super honest about it, then maybe it's going to be a little bit different. But to me, that would be like the don't. Like don't try to come off shilling what they say, right? So like really pushing your work, which in any community that wouldn't really go down.
Yeah, and I kind of want to piggyback off something you said with that earlier. Is you keep saying like you follow your curiosity, and I think that's something that I really want to touch on, and it's something that I've seen you do really effectively, which is just kind of, you know, you get into the space and you bounce around until you find, I guess, your group or your people. And I think, as I said, like you've done this perfectly. Like I've seen you in so many different groups and platforms and websites, and like your profile picture has become famous, which I think even the sentence, your profile picture has become famous, has now become famous in like a really meta way. But yeah, like I really want you to touch on kind of finding the group that fits you, and kind of, as you said, like helping in any way that feels natural, and how that kind of helps, and it's kind of the right direction, the right behavior to have.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. For me, the first one was Songcamp, like 100%. I think for musicians, if you find a place that they're talking about making music, like that's a great place, right? And to me, that was amazing because like I'm like I want to make music with people. I want to experiment collectively and understand things collectively. I think that's inherently the way we understand things. And it was really just joining the Monday calls, and then we did like a little mini camp. So if you could find these communities that have some creation challenge, which a lot of them do, either a remix, either a weekly challenge, like we're starting one up in the Wavwrld, like these little like creative process challenges. To me, that's a great way of finding a group of musicians to connect with, because I think the music is really at the core and what bonds all, like what we got here, why we got here in the first place. So beyond that, it's really about what do you want to do. Like Water and Music has easy contribution in the sense of it's really organized. If you want to find a specific thing to contribute that they're already working on, they do these reports, they have season reports, there's compensation, and really I think it does just take time, and it's a personalized approach. And for me, it was really different when I got into these communities than what it is now. Some of these communities didn't exist. So I think it really is also about having that adaptability of just noticing, ooh, like this community popped up and this really just jives with me. Let me just explore a little bit more. And if it doesn't, then, you know, move on to the next one. And then you'll find one or two that really jive with you. It's the Bruce Lee thing.
Be like water. I love that. Well, yeah, I think that's perfectly summing up kind of what I was asking there. The other question I had, and I think we briefly talked about this in a chat that we had before this. You went into the aspect of kind of that this is not sustainable. Like the way that you came into the space, you were everywhere all at once. You were constantly on Twitter, and it works, but it's not something that you can do, you know, for months and months and months. And I think a friend of yours said that you need to think of it like seasons. So, you know, you might come into the space and spend a week, or for me, I'm going to be spending this whole week doing this. So I apologize in advance to my wife. But yeah, you were saying like you look at it as seasons, and then you can kind of block it out in the sense that you can go full tilt for a little while and get a really good kind of grasp on the space and what's going on and who's involved, and start building relationships that way. But I really wanted to just touch on, you know, I guess any tips that you might have on avoiding burnout or focusing on balance in your life as well when you are doing this, because I think it's something that's not really talked about enough in the space. It seems to be this kind of hustle mentality, and I think it's really important. I think you're the perfect person with, you know, how grounded you seem to be all the time, even though you are constantly everywhere or have been in the past. I think you'd be great to speak on that too.
Yeah, I think this is like one of the most important conversations. I think honestly, it's not even to do with the space. For me, I read a lot of Cal Newport. He's like the writer of Deep Work. He has like Digital Minimalism, like A World Without Email. I really think it's just the modern knowledge economy across the board. Like if you just see any person that's working in front of a computer, like they're really burnt out, a lot of them. Like the reward for better working is just more work usually. So I don't even think it's the space at all. I also think it's the actual way Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of these social medias are built. They're built with the whole entire incentive model towards doom scrolling, right? Because the revenue comes from people spending more time and getting served more ads. And it's just attention harvesting. So I think it's just about building tools towards convenience. And that's not what our biology craves. Our biology actually rejects that. So I think it's being aware of that in the first place, because these algorithms are pointed at you, and everyone's just living in this black mirror, like comparison on IG stories, comparison on Twitter feeds. Like actually, like NFT Twitter for the most part is actually like a lot better than some of the other sides of Twitter that can get like really, really dark, right? Like I was on no social media actually before crypto. Twitter, because I remember even in 2020, I'm just like, I'm gonna go on experiment with nothing. Like deleted IG, deleted everything. I was just like, it's too much. But back to your season approach, I think it's if you're aware of that, right? And in the beginning for me, I was just so interested. I would just spend a lot of time because that's what I do with all of my interests. Like when I was interested in Ableton, I would just dive in really deep. So it was also a personality thing for me individually. And yeah, Mark Redito actually from Songcamp, he's a great friend and he's really thoughtful, and we share a lot of the same philosophy. And really he was talking about seasonality because he was a full-time musician for a really long time, and he was in a different season of his life of wanting to do the DAO and like the operations of Songcamp and more of the modern knowledge economy actually that a lot of creatives are now entering. You even see it in water and music, and they're enjoying it too. And for me, Web3 was amazing because I love both of those things. And yeah, I think if I were to go back, just being very aware of like seasonality, being very aware of all of the way these tools are built. I time block a lot. I love like Cal Newport's time blocker. I think there really is something to building systems and social systems and information ecologies. Really, that's what I think Twitter is, right? It's like the town square, like where the information ecology is and how it's built really impacts humans. And for me, back to like the question of Wavwrld, I'm interested in people exploring what new information ecologies are going to look like that don't have this misaligned incentive system. I don't think it was built with that in mind. I think it was just emergent from not charging for the product in the beginning and just copying Google's ad revenue model. But yeah, I think just burnout's real. Like, and I think most of the world is actually feeling burnt out. Like I was looking at numbers and statistics, and like, especially after COVID, to cross, space thing. And I think if that's that conversation, I'd love to have more. And I'd love to have people on that can talk about that. I remember I was in a space the other day with like a burnout coach. My roommate's like a performance psychologist. So he has a lot of conversations. He talks about that. I think even just pursuing music professionally, there's a whole world. I remember that I think Solar Fractures and someone else was sharing around like just the negative mental health repercussions of pursuing music if you're not aware of all the like complexity. And we're changing that, right, with Web3 ideally. But I think being aware and being upfront and being transparent with yourself that the reality is nuanced. It's not black and white, and you're going to be pushed towards overconsumption. You got to constantly pull yourself back. And then maybe you can be okay with spending one whole week, you know, and being upfront with your wife and being like, I'm going to spend like a lot of time this week, and then I'm going to go back into another season. And for myself, I've been in a season of music making the last month or two, especially after chaos, but even before that. And I had to make a mental conscious, like, no, I'm like, DMs are going to go unanswered. People like, you know, it's like, it just has to be. It's not sustainable the way it's built. So you got to just go into it with a seasonality approach.
Yeah, I think that's really spot on. I think it's really, as you said, like overwhelming with how quickly the space changes. Like you can spend a week away and come back and there's 3 or 4 new platforms and all these different people have already dropped on it and you feel like you're missing out. But like I think it's really important, as you said, to just like take a step back and just really look at it from a broad aspect of like what this could be, and that it's not going to be, you know, one platform or one opportunity that really makes this whole, I guess, opportunity that is Web3 music pop. It's going to be success stories, and that can kind of happen from angle of, you know, the entire space. So I think it's really important what you said. Do you have any like specific, I guess, like rituals that you would do? Do you do any like kind of any practices of grounding after you spend a lot of time on computers, or like, you know, meditation or movement?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And yeah, I think it comes back down to, before I get to that question, just since the tools are built like that, they're incentivized. These are just like algorithms that people are getting paid 100K a year to develop. Like they want you to feel like that because you're gonna like spend more time on there, right? So it's that's a real reality. And yeah, it's a very tough battle because you have to be aware that you're not going to miss anything. Like even if you're gone for 2 months, 3 months, you're probably not going to miss anything. And it really is about time in the market, not timing the market, quote unquote, to use a finance term. And just like, yeah, like Ibn Inglor does a great job. He takes breaks and he makes music. I know he talks about this a lot. And I think it's an illusion. And that never stops. Like even if you're on the platforms, you're gonna like always feel that feeling of like, oh, but someone else did this. It's the hedonic treadmill, right? And you see huge founders. I know Justin Khan, he's the ex-founder of Twitch. He sold his company for $1 billion, and on his YouTube, he talks about this a lot, about the hedonic treadmill. And he has $100 million in the bank, but it's the thought of, oh, but this person, that, and if you don't upfront know that that feeling is never going to go away unless you're just thinking about this from an intrinsic motivation, right? Like, how can I continue to practice the practice of music? And it's hard because it's pushing you against, right? That is a very important, for me at least, that really helped me, right? Just being aware that this is also just like a battle when you're getting on these platforms. And to touch on your next question, yeah, I do think practices for me is like what life is all about. It's the infinite games. I got into music because there's no like end goal. It's just like continuing to explore this practice. And for me, it's really about creating every day more so than having 1 million Spotify streams or making 50 ETH on a thing. It's about how can I continue to fuel this practice of creation. And I do love physical movement. I think physical movement is like a really, really, really great place to start. If I'm feeling like a little bit too much in my mind, which is what these platforms do, I think starting with the body is a great way for me. The first way we learned was through the body. All our first synapses was from learning like from our motor cortex and whatnot. So yeah, physical movement practice for me. Sunlight is huge. I follow Andrew Huberman. He's like a great neuroscientist who just honestly is a wealth of knowledge, like well-researched knowledge around how your biology works, which I think is always the first place to start. And meditation. yeah, like understanding the concept of non-duality. And I think Bloody White was asking about it today, but just like ego dissolution and yeah, like the concept of samadhi and whatnot. And that's a practice again, right? For me, like I'm saying all these things for myself because so it's always a work in progress. And like the inklings of burnout always come in, like having to like practice and like continuing to have those habits is always a work in progress. But for me, that's what's fun. I think that's what makes life worth living. But I think, yeah, to your point, like the grounding practices are huge, right? Whatever that is for you. The 5 minute journal is a great one. Like starting my day, not checking Twitter is the first thing or anything like that. Like it's non-reactive. It's first like I do the 5 minute journal. I go outside. I get sun. I like doing that for me is also like that's a place to ground you, and then you can like have your boundary and you go use your social media and whatnot. But it's a constant work in progress for sure.
Thank you, man. Like I've actually mentally taken note on a few of those things because yeah, I've definitely been lacking lately on that kind of stuff with this show coming up, and you know, you just get in your head and you're like, is there something that I've missed? And inherently, you know, I'm over prepared in every way that I didn't need to be, and under prepared in like the most obvious ways. Like I only bought the webcam that I'm using literally like 2 days ago, and luckily, thanks to Amazon being evil and fast, it got here very quickly. But yeah, I definitely need to listen to your advice there. I got to move on a little bit because it's getting to around about 20 minutes left. So I just wanted to jump into like collecting as an artist, and I've noticed that you're present at basically every Sound XYZ drop. For people who don't know, Sound is a platform that works with artists dropping music in editions of 25 or 50 and selling them for, I think it's 0.1 ETH, but basically their goal is to pay artists kind of what they deserve, and there's a really cool community around it. You get to there's a pretty big secondary market around it as well. People resell it, and I'm pretty sure I saw a stat the other day that they've paid out over $2 million to artists already in like 4 months, which is just insane. But off that, you know, do you recommend that I start investing and get my own music NFTs? Because I'm really interested in this too. Like, does it help to see the space through the eyes of a collector and not just an artist?
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, my thesis is that similar to the way Ableton and all of these software-based tools, and even torrenting, you could say, right, especially in third world countries, led to the rise of like the bedroom producer, and the barrier to entry of even just making music just completely was changed. I think similarly, it's going to happen with collecting and who the audience is and who the musician is. So I think like the line between collector and musician is going to get blurred a lot more. But I think it's individualized. I think for me, it was really, really important to figure out, like you said, right? Like you were a kinesthetic learner, like getting my hands dirty, collecting it, minting it, for me was really, really important. I do think collection right now is about connection. That's a good line. Collection is about connection. But for me, like one of my biggest collectors, actually, that's what he told me. He's the one who purchased my golden egg on my sound drop. Shout out Ikuma. He's an amazing human. And he really was just like talking about connection, and not just connection amongst the artist and the collector, but amongst collectors themselves, right? So like becoming a collector just lets you connect with all the other collectors. And I think it's really not about, you don't have to collect at any specific price point. You could even, like for me, like the first step is even just sharing someone's music you really resonate with, right? Like that's the first step towards just supporting the art, and whatever that support for you means, whether it be like buying something. And there's, I think music NFTs of all prices right now. But for me, yeah, I love collecting. I love collecting waves. For me, it's really just, I always loved collecting in general beyond just music. So it's individualized. I have a friend who's deep in the Web3 community and contributed, like has minted a lot of music, and he really like doesn't have that many music NFTs at all. Like he like wants to collect one of mine as one of his first. So it really is personalized. And for the most part, for me, like, yeah, it was huge, and it was just an organic flow.
Yeah, like I guess it would, you know, I assume it would probably be like a really good way to network in general, and like a kind of a direct contact to one of your favorite artists. Like if they happen to drop an NFT, like if you bought it, being so early in the space as it is, and usually there's only a certain amount of them that you'd be able to speak directly to that artist, when in another time in the world, quite recently, there was no real way to kind of show that support. So like, do you have any stories like that, like experiences where you've connected with anyone that you've invested in their music?
Yeah, I think a lot of the artists that I've connected with for sure. I know Patlock, he's got like a little Telegram that's really fun. He's been super nice. Also, me as a collector, I don't expect anything. But yeah, he's like offered to like let us into shows. He sends us snippets of songs. He'll like show us like the music NFT being played at like big places. Yeah, and it's a dope chat. Like David from Sound's in there because he's a collector. So like it really is like a hack in the sense of you can connect. But for me, I wouldn't set the expectation about automatically connecting with the artist, because I think it's also up to the artist. I think it's also important to think about this as an artist yourself, about what relationship you want to have with your collectors, because it really is individualized. Like I have friends that actually have into like larger projects and even some on Solana. And then like for me, what I would not want, and for some other people, they like do not mind, is when there's too many collectors that come in for the wrong intention. And then you have this situation of they're there with all this expectation. Now there's like financial expectation. So yeah, I think it depends also like as an artist, because we're really exploring a completely new economy of just letting music have an open market. But I have personally, like, Patlock has been a great one. I know Ben Kessler has like another Telegram. And maybe you can touch on this after. You don't always need to collect. I think it's also just about building rapport and seeing what other collectors and artists are interested in, which just using your time and your knowledge is also a great way of getting connected with a lot of these people.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's been really interesting for me, like just in my short space, just seeing like how much support everyone gives each other. And it seems to be like the whole entire Web3 music community is basically built around lifting each other up. And it kind of seems directly linked to, which is also kind of why I set the goal today, is to kind of become I guess like a well-known and well-liked figure in the space. It seems to be that the more that you kind of reach out and tell people, that you love their song, or specifically what you loved about their song, and not in a really kind of surface level way, not because you're trying to get anything out of it, but like even yesterday, I listened to a dot track. I forget what it was called, but it was just awesome. And I actually like literally closed my eyes and had like a little boogie. And I just tweeted about it, and she immediately responded with like, it was a really heartfelt tweet, and she responded with like a really heartfelt response. And I think like that's kind of piggybacking off what you said. Like, it's such a good way to connect with people that you respect their music, just to literally tell them how good it is. And I think that that's not done enough in the general world, in real life, in Web2 or whatever you want to call it. I think especially from where I'm from, like there's a lot of tall poppy, which is basically artists looking at each other like competition, and that there's not enough to go around. And I think it's just been really refreshing for me to just see that essentially if you're here to build and help, then you're instantly going to just be accepted and lifted up as well. So that's been kind of like the biggest value proposition to me of the space. But kind of on the back of that, like I'm someone that overthinks a lot and gets imposter syndrome quite easily. And I really don't want people taking me the wrong way. So kind of off what we were just talking about, like, as I said, like I know you're someone who's big on individuality, and you come across really grounded and strong in who you are. And I was just wondering if you had any kind of, I guess, advice on making sure that you come across in the right way when you are reaching out to these people, or you do kind of, if you do happen to have a conversation with someone that you look up to in the space, or that they could potentially help you, but more from just an avenue of kind of connecting with them out of friendship, or seeing what you could kind of provide for them.
Yeah, no, I think really for me, the advice I would give is the same advice someone would give you about learning from someone slightly ahead of you. I think same thing goes for reaching out. I don't know if the best approach is to off the bat reach out to like the largest person, or the person you want to collect your work most, that probably has a lot of stuff on their plate. I think it's about finding people that are a little bit ahead in their journey, and a lot of people are really responsive. A lot of people have time to respond. Black Honey, Ali, he wrote a great thread on one-on-one interactions. I know we spoke about this briefly. And yeah, I remember he hit me up one day, like in the beginning of his Web3 journey. We had a one-on-one call, and it was just like no expectations at all. It was great vibes. Like we've been in touch ever since. We're in Camp Chaos now. Like he's done amazing, releases all over. We've done the nice party bits for the glass video. So it's really just, you never know what one call or one relationship can do. But for me, the advice would be, don't pester people in the beginning. Kind of just be human, right? Like just see what these people are tweeting about, see what they're interested in, and yeah, slowly but surely, I think organically you'll find the pockets of people that are resonating with how you communicate.
Perfect. I just wanted to, I want to keep this to around an hour, but I want to just get some hearts if anyone's having a good time and is happy to kind of go over a little bit, because I'm just getting so much juicy knowledge from this conversation. I really appreciate it. But yeah, let me know. We can definitely wrap it up soon, if not. But another question I wanted to quickly ask is, I've noticed that there's a lot of events like ETH Denver, and if you're on Twitter for 2 seconds in this space, you get like some crazy FOMO from all these places. It looks so fun and everyone connecting, but like how beneficial is it to do, if you can afford it or if you happen to live in those cities, like to go to one of the in real life events?
For me, I think the human connection, you can't compare to it. I think like video calls for me are close, right? Like when we started doing song cam calls, I remember just thinking back to my early journey and we started turning the video cameras on. There was a different connection, right? Like when we talk over Google Chat and we're talking for an hour, there's just a different human connection when you see someone's face. But the IRL events for sure are, a great way of connecting if you can afford it. I think if not, like trying to organize them at your local communities would be amazing. We've done like some little Wavwrld ones here where like it's been like the first time like 5-6 people, and then the next time a little bit more. And I would also check out what's going in your local area. But for me, and even noticing my girlfriend, like I remember my girlfriend was like, "What are you doing on Twitter? And what are you doing on all these Discords?" And like she didn't really get it. And when she went to NFT NYC, and she connected with other women, other people, and it's also about navigating the space because there's a lot of bullshit in the space too, but like finding the right pockets also IRL for her was amazing. We even got to make music together with Songcamp in New York. So and we're really looking to do a lot of that in the Wavwrld. We really think that the like URL to IRL, having everyone connect in these Twitter spaces is amazing and great and amazing and whatnot. But I think like once you meet in person, like once you go back to the Twitter spaces, it's a completely different rapport.
100%. And I see your girlfriend in the audience. She's giving you the most hearts every single time you say a single thing. She gives hearts, which is just warming my heart at the same time. So shout out Violetta. Yeah, so I think that's definitely going to be one of the actionable steps that I write down. I'm going to take Steph to NFT NYC this year and hopefully see you guys there, and she can connect with Violetta and understand some stuff on that angle too. Because yeah, I shared a Instagram kind of meme thing about guys trying to explain NFTs to their girlfriends, and it's basically the same thing as doing like tricks on Heelys. If you've ever seen Heelys, the wheels with the shoes with wheels in them. It's basically the same thing as trying to tell someone how good NFTs are that aren't interested. But I digress. The last thing I wanted to ask.
It's true though. It's true. I think you can't tell, you just have to show. Like I remember it was like literally like 2 to 3 months. Like she was just like she did not get it. But it's also about, I think, and then I'll let you go to your last question. Just people need to hear it in the way that they're communicated to. And it's not like a gender thing. It's just like in general, I think. So I think that's also back to like the personalized, like you onboarding someone is going to be different than me onboarding someone, and we all need to be doing it collectively because we're going to like just impact people in a different way because of our communication styles. So I think it really is important that everyone keeps passing the torch.
100% agree with that. And off the back of that, the tweet that I put out at the start of this was kind of curated by Jade, who I think is in the audience. a lot of the resources there are written by women for women and non-binary people, and I've had a little read through it. It's so succinct and together, because I think that myself, I over-explain things, and I think that's usually the issue with trying to explain things to my wife. But yeah, the question I wanted to ask, I just had it in my head just based off what you said before. It was kind of saying like that you recommend finding someone like just above you, or kind of at your level, or even like a group of people in the space kind of at around the same understanding or expertise. Would you kind of I see it a little bit, but would you kind of advise people to group up with them and kind of, you know, they can hold each other accountable and give each other information, almost like sharing notes when you've missed a class, and kind of follow what's new and exciting together? And does that make the kind of the process of understanding the space a little bit more kind of fun and inclusive?
Yes, for sure. I think, yeah, learning together is fun, right? For me, it was, I think, song camp at first, and then, to be honest, it's hard too, right? Because I have musician friends in Miami where I live, and there's a big scene out here, but there isn't that many music people into NFTs like at all. And it's been interesting, because a lot of the music friends I have weren't my music friends locally, or just like from Web2. It was completely new people that we were just connecting on here. Like I see Ibn here, like we connected early on, and you know, just have connected in a bunch of different places, Miami and Colorado, and just I play his music all the time. I collect his music, and honestly, it's been really interesting to just start connecting with everyone here. And for me, yeah, collectively was huge. Just finding a group of musicians like along the similar part of the journey, and a lot of them are already in these communities, so they're very receptive to like making new friends.
Awesome. Yeah, Ibn was one of the first people who I saw his Mirror article, and it just blew my mind. His and Daniel Allen's as well, just to see kind of like the actual potential of this space and community-based crowdfunding to kind of help an artist realize, you know, the ability to actually be full-time and kind of help their community. It's really, really crazy. So yeah, thanks for stopping by, even if you're still here. I think you just bailed. No, it's all good. So yeah, I think I actually have a really good idea of what steps I'm going to take this week now. So for anyone that kind of missed the start of it, each week I'm going to be interviewing the prominent figures in the space and having a goal that I want to achieve this week. So just to refresh, our goal was to come up with the most effective way to understand and become a known member of the Web3 music community. It's long, but that's kind of how I come up with sentences. It's way too long. But yeah, so I'm going to write down some steps that I'm going to take this week in order to try to achieve that goal. And I really want to be held accountable by all of you, and I'll be posting video diaries, which I'm not really looking forward to everyone seeing my vulnerable, unedited perfectionist self, just kind of describing exactly how this is going and the good, the bad, and the ugly, etc. But I'll be uploading them as well. But just while I do that, I do just want to kind of pass the mic to the floor, as I know there's always people that want to ask someone like Karma a question in general. So if anyone wanted to request to come up, I might ask, I don't know if Karma, you can actually like accept them, but just like kind of one at a time. While I write these notes, what do you think?
Yeah, I can definitely accept them if people request, for sure.
So you just hit the little request button if you want to jump up.
And also, I just want to say it's honestly amazing that you're doing this podcast. Like, it definitely is putting yourself into the uncomfortable zone, which I think is where the most learning is. And it's really relatable because I felt the same way. Like, I think everyone feels the imposter syndrome. Everyone feels like, I'm sharing my vulnerability. Like, I still feel that all the time, you know? So I just want to like acknowledge you, and like, it's awesome that you're doing this in the first place. I think for me, one of the biggest things was also just doing things before I was ready. And I kind of live by that now, and action bias, you know, a bias towards action is so important. So I'm just hyped to see this blueprint thing evolve.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, it's so against my nature to do things before they're, you know, wrapped in a bundle with a bow and sent off FedEx first class. Like, I really, really struggle. Like, I could put a song out and within a week think of something I would have fixed on it. So for this for me is actually really nerve-wracking and vulnerable. So I really appreciate, I guess, the trust that this is going to go well from you, or at least that it's a good idea. So thank you. Jade.
I'm the same way, so.
Good. No, you'd never know it. We've been working on that hard enough. I gotta have another hour-long call with you after this. Jay, go ahead.
Thank you for coming up. And honestly, I love that you came up here and this is your first Twitter space. Shout out to you. I definitely think you're thinking about this already along the lines that I would recommend, just with the way you framed your question, given the fact that you're thinking about this with a manifold contract. For me, really, it would just be around setting pricing. I think Violetta has a great thread on this. It really just depends on what your expectations are and what your community is like. Like we minted, I remember our first music video, which is still unsold, it's just like a party bid, and for Karma Violetta. And we learned a lot of lessons from that. We learned a lot of lessons of like how the reaction was, like it got like really consumed. It didn't get collected. We started a party bid, but we started the party bid after. So I would say depending on how you're going about it, if it's editions, if it's one of ones, and this is like an ever evolving thing, right? But like, how do you roll out an NFT campaign? And I think all artists are experimenting with it, but just thinking intentionally about that. And for me, really, like, it's also just not having any expectations has really helped me in this space. Like, I just, I mint things that I want to release the same way I would release a song. And for me, it's really just like art is never finished, it's abandoned. And it's about like, you're really abandoning it, you're putting it on chain. So yeah, I would just say, I think Violetta has a great thread. I don't know why we can't pin things anymore, but I'll share it with you. Or Violetta, maybe you can DM Green Ring. But for me, I think a lot of the lessons that we learned from our initial mints were distilled down into that. I'm excited. Let us know when you mint it.
Yeah, please do, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming up. Super excited. And yeah, Manifold seems to be a really cool platform as well. I was reading about that the other day. So I think you're really on the right track. I think you don't need any help, really. I think it seems like you really know what you're doing. So I think if there's any advice that I could give in my brief time, even just in this conversation, it seems to be just put it out and let go. Seems to be the kind of way that everyone works in this space and builds publicly and fails and succeeds publicly, and everyone kind of accepts that and loves that, supports that. So yeah, best of luck, man. Super excited about that. If there's no one else who wants to jump up, I can announce my actionable steps. That there's only 4, so I should be able to get them done hopefully. But 2 of them are going to be pretty all encompassing. But so the first one is going to be to sign up for Water and Music and get reading. I think that could be a really big help for me, just from what Karma said about the community and how much he got out of it, and now he writes for it. So I'm sure I'll be able to learn a lot there. To also like join into all the communities mentioned during this episode and start interacting and offering as much value and assistance wherever I can. And just try to be as real as possible. That's my dog barking in the background. You can ignore that. It's probably a piece of mail. The third thing, I'm going to buy at least 1 music NFT. I'm going to try to find someone that I really, really, really vibe with musically and invest in them and show them some love. I think that'd be really cool. And I do really want to see like what it feels like to collect music from that angle. It's kind of been something that I want to do for a very long time, but I've been kind of holding off because I wanted to do it after this episode, and I wanted to make sure that I was advised to do so. And the 4th thing is pretty big, is I want to book my ticket to NFT NYC, because you really inspired me. Just like, I've been looking into it anyway, obviously, from having all the FOMO of ETH Denver, and it looks so fun. And I really just want to meet people in the community and kind of get out of my comfort zone. And I'll bring Steph and hopefully someone that can explain things a bit better than me can help her understand what the hell I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, so those are my 4 things that I'm going to do this week. I'm going to tweet that out now. And yeah, I'm gonna check in most likely Tuesday with a video update explaining. It's going to be kind of a video update that has been filmed throughout the week, almost like a diary room on Big Brother. I don't know if you have Big Brother in America, but that's the best way that I could explain it. Just being as honest as possible, sitting on a chair and explaining how I'm feeling and what I've been doing and what's been easy and difficult. But yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to say. I was trying to figure out a way to do this, but I just think in general, like if there's anyone that's been listening and thinking like, who the fuck is Rien? I'm going to put an unreleased song up on the Blueprints Twitter for an hour after every episode, in kind of just a sense to just allow people, if they haven't heard my music, to listen to my music, and specifically something unreleased, which is kind of scary for me, but please don't download it or stream it somehow. I don't know how you could do that from SoundCloud on a private link, but be a friend. So yeah, it'll be up for the next hour. So if you want to go check it out, feel free to comment on it, but it will probably get taken down. But other than that, I'm just going to get to work on these steps. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone coming to the first episode. It's so sick to see more than like 2 people here. Like, I really, really appreciate that. A huge thank you to Karma and Jade for helping on the episode as well. And everyone in the audience again, once again, it's just been super, super, super exciting for me to just look down and see some love. It's really cool. So thank you. But yeah, I'll be tweeting that song out. It'll be up for an hour, and I'm super excited. Next week, it'll be on at the same time, Wednesday. I'm not going to announce the guest right now. Should I announce the guest right now? All right, I think Karma kind of half let the cat out of the bag before, but it's the episode's going to be on one-on-one relationships, which I think is kind of the next step that I'd like to take in order to kind of build a community and a sense of community, at least. I think that one-on-one relationships are really important, and I'm bringing on Lakani from his thread that he put up. I think is probably the best kind of example on how to do that. And also, like, as you said before, how to do it in a way that's really not expecting anything and just trying to connect with another human. I think it's really important to kind of push that. So I'd like to kind of pick his brain on how I do that. So yeah, if you're free next Wednesday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, come on down. All right, well, I don't want to keep anyone too long. I'll be posting that song on Twitter, so feel free to go have a listen if you've been sitting here going, what, why do I care about this guy's career? You can have a little listen and see if you really do. And yeah, I'll see you next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern with Black Honey. And thank you so much, everyone. Sending all the love in the world, and hope you have a great night. Mwah.
Have a good one, all.
Bye.